Testing. Can you guys hear me? If you can, just leave a note in the chat box. Awesome. So everyone can hear me. That's great. We're going to start promptly at 8 o'clock because we have a lot of information to cover. So I want to make sure that we get through it all. So we'll be starting right at 8. All right, so we are going to begin. And okay, so this chat box is definitely there for you guys to communicate with me. Let me know if you have any questions, but I'm just gonna get started right now at 8 o'clock. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to my class, my online photography training. Today we are going to be discussing lighting techniques, and these lighting techniques are for everyone to become better photographers. And as you guys know, lighting is the basis of our jobs, so it's really important, and I want you guys to just feel like you understand it and you feel confident with it. So I'm just going to dive right in. All right. All right, so as you can see here, guys, there's a long list of things to cover. Now, lighting is actually, one of you requested this topic, so I just want to say thank you for that, first of all, because in preparing this presentation, I was pretty, like, it sort of refreshed my memory on some things, and so I'm really glad that we're diving into this topic. As you can see, we are covering everything from natural light to artificial light, on-camera flash, off-camera flash, and different lighting setups. I'm also going to talk about some gear, and I have gear on hand with me to show you some of it, and I will also be discussing different options. So obviously some of the lighting gear is a lot more affordable than others, so I'm definitely going to be giving you guys some options so you know exactly how much you're going to want to be spending for your lighting setup. So just a quick introduction for some of you guys who do not really know me aside from what you've seen on Instagram. I am Samantha Clark. I am a photographer. I've been doing this for 10 years, and over the years, I kind of taught myself how to photograph people. I do specialize in weddings, but I find that nowadays I'm shooting a lot more portraits and a lot more commercial jobs. I have traveled within Canada, within the US, within Europe, and the Caribbean. I am also a lawyer. I went to law school, and I basically practiced law for about 2 years and decided that I would become a full-time photographer. So that's sort of a background about me. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to some of these, either being self-taught or having another full-time career. If you guys are working full-time, or like if you have another job, just like sort of let me know in the comment section. I'm curious to know if you guys are full-time photographers, or if you are you know, juggling the hustle with another full-time job. I'm very curious to know where you guys are at. Also, if you can let me know where you guys are from. So what city are you guys logging in from? That would be awesome to know as well. All right, so we have Natalie from Orlando, Victoria from Ottawa, balancing a full-time job and full-time accounting. Wow, accounting manager, that's huge. Natasha, hi Natasha, how are you? Full-time day job and photography is second full-time job. Yes. Maryland, Connecticut, full-time trade marketing director. Wow. Abby, nice to see you. Albany, New York, DC, part-time job, and New York City. Amazing. Jessica, hi everyone. This is so cool. So everyone's sort of juggling here. It seems like we're all juggling. So I know what that was like, guys. I know what it's like. You get home from work, then you sort of, switch gears into your creative job. Steve, part-time photography, full-time architecture designer. Wow. So I just want to let you guys know, I know the hustle. I've been there. I was a full-time lawyer. I was juggling my clients in my photography business and in my practice as a lawyer. So I can totally relate. And that's sort of why I chose to do this class in the evening, because I realized that when you're juggling a job, the evening sometimes is the only time you have available to yourself. So thank you so much. This is really cool. I love hearing that you guys can relate to my journey. So this presentation is really gonna just sort of all come down to this, short quote here. From a window, from a flash, from the sun. Light is light. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we're going through. As I said before, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat box, and I'm going to be checking periodically because I want to make sure that you guys are understanding everything and I'm not missing your questions. So we're going to start out by talking about natural light. So natural light is obviously outdoors, or if you're indoors, you're getting the natural light from a window. It's the opposite of artificial light. You have to find the light instead of create it. So you're not really gonna need a lot of equipment, for natural light. You can have your camera, and that's about it. People use reflectors, of course, but it doesn't cost much to be a natural light photographer. Now, the pictures I have here were all taken with natural light. Now, what's easier, right? Using natural light or artificial light? I think a lot of people think that natural light is easier. It does seem easier because it's less intimidating. You don't have to set up a lot, you don't have to carry a lot, but there are also less options. You have less control over the lighting situation because you're depending on a light source that is completely out of your control. It's light from above. There's a lot of restrictions, so a lot of us who try to focus on natural light are restricted to a certain time of day. We can't shoot at night because a lot of times there isn't a lot of natural light at night. We're also restricted by the fact that, golden hour is really the best time for photos. And for those of you who aren't sure what that means, golden hour is really that time in the early morning, right, when the sun rises, and about an hour before the sun sets. Those are the most, the best times for natural light photographers. And as you can see here in these photos that I posted in this slide, these are all two window lit photos and then 2 overcast days. Those are the ideal situations for a natural light photographer. But if your weather is off for some reason and you're unable to get outside, or you're unable to get in a place with big windows, you're really restricted. So I think we need to think about the quality of light that's available, and the quality is determined by all of these different things, you know, the time of day, the weather. Sometimes our clients are going to have a request for a photo. Like I've had people ask me for a photo with a particular backdrop. It could be like a stairwell. They really like a stairwell in a venue, for example. And that stairwell is dark. You know, there may not be any windows, or it may be, you know, in a basement or something like that. Your client is really the person you want to please, but at the same time, you have to educate them about the fact that there may not be a lot of available light there. But, you know, you just have to sort of prioritize making good light you know, your priority. And what I've realized over the years is that natural light is flattering, as you can see here. I use this example because this is very common on a wedding day. A bride gets ready in a hotel room. The hotel room is usually cluttered with a lot of things. Could be, you know, a lot of people, a lot of items, water bottles, shoes, clothes all over the place. But usually, if I can find a window, I will ask my bride to, you know, head over to the window. Luckily for these, as you can see, my bride is standing next to the window, and there's a nice sheer white curtain over that window, and I love these pictures. These are ideal situations for light when you're inside. Now, the thing about a window is that sometimes there's light bulbs on inside of the hotel room, and that is not flattering. So what I usually tell people is that you need to turn off the lights in the room so that you don't have a mixture of the yellow tungsten lights mixed with the window light. So it's definitely important to turn off the lights within the room and just focus on using that window as your main light source. In this case, the bride is wearing white, which is great for reflecting the light. But in certain situations, you know, you're gonna have to determine whether the light within the room is of a good quality. In this case, it was, so I got lucky. I want to give you some more scenarios for natural light. Backlighting. Backlighting, in my experience, is the best situation. It's the ideal situation because the sunlight is behind your clients, and you have sort of like an effect where the light is hitting them from behind and sort of providing a bit of a trailed off, a fall off. And that light actually helps to make the picture look a lot more dreamy, a lot more romantic. And what you'll see here in this demonstration, this sort of picture here, is that the subjects, the bridal party in this case, was standing between me and the sun. So this is really my ideal situation for an outdoor shoot in natural light, especially in a situation where it might be midday, the sun is still fairly high in the sky. And as you can see, it's kind of harsh, you know. What I try to do is, like I said, make sure that the sun is behind my clients and hitting me in the face, but sort of hitting them behind. Now, what you can do in these situations is you can still create beautiful photos even if the location is not the greatest. One thing you also want to keep in mind is that the surface in front of your subjects are going to reflect light back on to your subject. So if the light is behind the subject, what you're going to notice is that whatever is in front of them, so in this case, there were stairs in front of them, there was grass in front of them, you're going to see that the light, whatever is hitting them, right here, I'm going to use this laser down here, all of this is reflecting light back onto them. So if they're standing somewhere, I don't know, for example, if there was a yellow, you know, piece of concrete or something, like even a red brick wall, it's going to reflect the light back on because the sun is hitting it. So you always want to keep that in mind with the backlight, but typically backlighting is the ideal situation for outdoor natural light photos. And that was the final outcome. Do you guys have any questions? Candace, no problem. Yes. So actually, no. So the slides will not be available for download, but what you guys can do is rewatch this video. I will post it so everyone can watch this again. So if you missed anything and you're just joining us now, don't worry, you're going to be able to rewatch the presentation, but we're still pretty early in the game. You didn't miss much. All right, so the next scenario for natural light that is pretty common, but not my favorite, it's front lighting. So you can have the sun hitting your clients. It's not totally, against the rules. Sometimes you can break those rules and do something beautiful, but it's not personally my favorite. Sometimes I do it. And as you can see here, you have to really be aware of the shadows. If the sun is high in the sky, it's going to cause shadows underneath the subject's nose, underneath their lashes, underneath their chin. You'll see harsh shadows, a lot of contrast, and it's not very flattering. In my opinion, it's not very flattering. Now, sometimes this approach can look great, but you have to pay attention to your angles. Now, your angles are going to determine whether a front lit photo can look good or not. So you definitely want to be aware of that, but it can look beautiful. You just have to expose your light and expose your camera for those shadows. Now in this case, I had the subject turn her face to the light, so there wasn't as much shadow underneath her nose, but there's still some under her chin. So, like I said, it's not the most ideal, but if you have to, you can use this as a technique for your photos. Now, once again, natural light, but this time we're looking for open shade. Open shade is safe. You guys, this is typically something I would do if there's a lot of people around. Now, the two photos on the right-hand side were taken in New York City. New York City is super busy. There's people everywhere all the time. It's the city that doesn't sleep. I needed a clean picture without people in it, so I found a north-facing wall, and it was completely shaded. Now, the lighting, in my opinion, is pretty flat. It's not very interesting, but it's safe. And the light is even, so I can take pictures from any angle and not have to worry. So it's not bad, it's just not my favorite situation. It doesn't give you that dreamy glow that you see around, sort of making a halo and a rim light around your subjects. But hey, it's an easy shot. And to be honest, sometimes these portraits are still important to the client. So I say, if you need to, find that open shade and take that picture and get that shot, because in a natural light situation, you may not be able to have many other options. Do you guys have any questions about that open shade? So like I said before, backlight is my favorite, and I'm going to show you why. Your front light situation versus your backlight situation. I mean, if you look at this, I'm sure the couple would like either picture, but personally, from the perspective of being, a professional photographer, I would say the backlit photo looks better. You can see that the light is rimming them very nicely, and you don't have to worry so much about the shadows that are caused under the nose and the harsh contrast on their faces. Okay, so I still delivered both of these photographs to my clients, but most likely the most likable photo to the client would most likely be the backlit photo. And that's just because it looks more romantic, the lighting is even, and there's no harsh shadows. Now, I want you guys to know that you can shoot natural light at any time of day. You can shoot indoors, you can shoot at noon, but you can't shoot in the dark or at night. So I always say it's time to sort of expand. If you understand the natural light concepts, it's time to expand and think about other ways to light. We have a question. How do you not blow out the background when exposing for their face? Very good question. I usually try to, so a few things. I'm very big on being aware of the background because obviously this client wants to remember that they were at the lake. I was going to say the ocean, but it's definitely not an ocean in the background. They want to remember that they were at the lake. And if I had exposed for their skin and for their faces, I would have blown out the water. So what I typically do is I underexpose the photo. I underexpose the photo, and then in post, when I bring the photo into Lightroom, I bring up the shadows and I don't lose the water. So this picture, when I shot it, I don't have the original to show you guys, but most likely it was darker. I probably made it, you know, a few stops below what it should be for exposure, and then I brought up the shadows in post. So I want you guys to know that this class is part 1. In part 2, I'm going to be explaining more about the post-processing and about my settings on my camera. So good question, and hopefully you understand that. If not, just let me know, because it is sort of an advanced technique, but that's typically what I do so that I don't completely blow out the background. Okay, so we're going to dive in here to your different options for artificial light sources. Keep in mind, guys, that sometimes I think we overcomplicate things. Your natural light is just like your artificial light, except that you're creating the light. Okay, you're creating it by using different tools, but essentially what you're trying to do is create that window effect. You know, when you had the curtains over it and you want that diffused light, that's essentially what we're trying to do. And sometimes it's going to be easier and sometimes it's going to be harder, but really what it comes down to is your gear. Learning your gear inside and out, practicing with that gear, and then implementing it on the day of the shoot or on the day of the wedding. So there are several options other than natural light, and what I have pictured here are 3 other options: the continuous light option, the speed light, and the studio strobe. So what's the difference? Continuous light is a type of light that usually is referred to as an LED light or a video light. The light is always on. That's why they say it's continuous. It doesn't stop. Once you turn it on, that light is constantly there, just like the sun, just like the light from a window. What I like about the LED is that they're fairly inexpensive. You can get them, you know, I have this light panel in my bag. It was about 40 bucks on Amazon. And then obviously these is what you would see potentially with, you know, video setups. This is very inexpensive as well. Now, some of the drawbacks is that it's very low intensity. What you see is what you get. It's not that burst of light that you get from a flash. It's just, you know, one level light. You have to be fairly close to the subject to use continuous light, and your subject is usually not going to be moving. So if your subject is sitting there for a portrait or they're sitting there for a video shoot, you know, it's very simple to set up your continuous light. But the further away the continuous light is from the subject, the less light you're going to have, and it's going to fall off very easily. So this is not really my go-to lighting situation, but it's definitely an option, and I keep it in my bag for smaller details throughout the day. You do have to set your camera as if you're shooting for natural light. So you might need a higher ISO in a low light situation, and you may need to lower your shutter speed. As I said before, the cost is pretty inexpensive, but what ends up happening with these is the less money you spend on continuous light, the more you're not really going to have a lot of light to work with. So there's some LEDs and video lights that are very expensive, you know, over $1,000. Those ones are usually more powerful than a $50 light, or they're not just more powerful, but they're bigger than the $50 LED. Now this works for me, the one I have here, because I don't use it that often. It's really just there in my bag just in case. The speed light. Now it's very portable. Most of us have a speed light. If you don't, I suggest you invest in one immediately, as soon as possible. They are battery powered. They're much brighter than the continuous light. They're somewhat limited in terms of the types of modifiers that we can use for them, but you can definitely, you know, set it up for a smaller portrait setup. And for those of you who aren't sure what a modifier is, I will be explaining that a bit more in a minute. Now, it doesn't have a modeling lamp, and a modeling lamp is basically a continuous light that is always there that helps you to focus your subject in the picture. So there's no modeling lamp on a speed light. It's definitely a wedding photographer's best friend, just because it's really portable. They're inexpensive compared to studio strobes. And I sort of priced some of them for you guys to see what the range is. So the Canon 600 EXRT2 is about $479, and the Nikon SB5000 is a little bit more, $596. Now, you guys probably are like me, where you may be interested in sort of taking your photography to the next level, but you may not want to invest thousands and thousands of dollars right now in lighting. So what I would think about is looking at the third-party flashes, which are pretty reliable these days. I have some Yongnuo flashes, which are compatible with my Canon gear, and the Yongnuos are 112. And then there's other ones. There's Photix and there's Godox, and they all sort of do the same thing. They work with Canon, Nikon, and Sony cameras, and they're much less, in price. And it's a good place to start if you're sort of, just getting into the speedlight game. Now, if you do plan on doing some off-camera lighting, which I'm going to be talking about as well, you're going to need the radio, the flash transceiver. So that's basically how the flashes, the speed lights, communicate with each other so that they go off at the same time. That's basically the basic way of explaining it. There's a radio signal that helps them all to work together. And what I like about having that radio transmitter is that it provides you the ability to control the flash units from your camera, which is really convenient, because if you have different lighting setups, which I'm going to show you, you're going to need them to communicate without, running over to the lights to fix them each time. So the ways to work your speed light: you can use it on camera in your hot shoe, and that means just putting it right on top of your camera, or you can use it for off-camera setups, which is when you put it on a light stand and you set it up just like you would want your client to stand next to a window or to stand close to a window to get some light. That's how you would set up your speed light if you wanted to, for an off-camera setup. Now, what you'll see is that your speed lights have different settings. There's TTL, which is through the lens, and some photographers use that as an easy way to set up. Like, for example, you're at a busy event, you don't really have time to set up your manual settings, so you just pop it on your camera, In TTL, that means it's basically going to automatically set your flash settings for you based on your camera settings and the light in the room. I personally do not like using TTL because it's guessing. It's like putting your camera in, auto. Like I like having control over my settings, so I will always use manual and try to control how much light is coming out of my flash and my camera. Now, sometimes TTL doesn't work, so you need to set it to manual so that you have control. And what I've learned is that this takes a lot of practice. It's not impossible to learn it. You just gotta practice a little bit and see what works for you. So like I said, I select the shutter, the aperture, and the ISO. This picture here is an off-camera lighting setup, which I will explain. Now there's 3 methods when you're using the flash on your camera. So this is on camera, just like you see in this picture. I'm holding my camera and I'm holding my flash, or I have my flash right on top of my camera. Now you can point the flash directly at your subject. You can modify the flash, or you can bounce the flash. Now, obviously, just like I showed you guys with the natural light, when the sun is directly, at high noon, the sun is pointing directly at your clients, it's not as flattering. It's harsh. And obviously, there's situations where you're going to need that because you may not have a modifier, or you may not have anywhere to bounce the flash. But your direct light is not going to be as flattering, in my opinion. Now, if you're outside, the sun is very harsh, and you really wanted to use your flash to fill the shadows, you can do that. It's not my favorite, but it's an option. If you want to, you can also do that. Now, modified flash is when you are, pointing your flash up, and then you say, for example, you have a modifier on it. I'm going to show you guys some modifiers, so keep that. If you have any questions about them, I'm going to show you so you guys will know exactly what I mean. But if you guys have heard of Magmod, Magmod makes some really great modifiers. They have the Mag Sphere and the Mag Bounce, and they're about $50 each. And then there's also something called the Rogue Flash Bender, which a lot of people use as well, and it's about $40. So these are other ways to use your flash on your camera and still create a light that's not as harsh, so it's a little bit modified. Now the other option, which I have done for years, and quote me when I say this, years, guys. I have been bouncing flash for many, many years. You can bounce flash pretty easily in a room with, white walls and white ceilings. And you'll see in my example shots here, I'm bouncing light. I'm bouncing light off the ceiling. This is a white draping, and it reflected light pretty well, as you can see here. There was a wall on this side of my clients here, so I was bouncing off the wall and it was hitting them there. This one had a white ceiling, this one has a white ceiling. So you can bounce light fairly easily with white walls and white ceilings, or light colored walls and light colored ceilings. But the truth is, you may not always be in a venue that allows you to have the option to bounce. Some venues are, dark. Some venues are barns. Imagine having wooden beams and trying to bounce off some wooden beams in a barn. That's not going to work. And if it does, you're going to have sort of like a yellow cast. We have a question. So my flash power, it depends. So I typically start with, I would say like a quarter power. And then if it's not, powerful enough, I'll put it up to half. but my flash is rarely on full power. Very rare, very, very, very rare. So you guys, I usually start in the middle, 16th power. It depends. But you really have to think about how high is the ceiling, how far is the wall, and then you gotta turn your flash up so that it can bounce, right? So if you have a really high ceiling, you're gonna have to put that power up so that it can bounce and come back down. All right. Thanks for your question. If you guys have any more, just keep them coming and I will answer them. So these are all bounce flash, okay? Now I'm gonna briefly talk about strobe lighting, but I want you guys to know that strobes are really the standard for studio photographers. If you are shooting on location, typically you don't see a lot of strobes. Now nowadays, which I think is pretty cool, there are strobes from Profoto that are very portable, but they're also very, very expensive. So they're not always the option for folks like us where you're trying to keep your costs down. But honestly, I would say nowadays there's more options for studio strobes for people on the go. What I like about strobes are that they recycle quickly. So what that means is that you can shoot frames quickly and not run out of power, because a lot of strobes, plug into the wall and then they keep that recycle time going. This setup, imagine carrying this with you out to a park for a half an hour shoot with a family or a bride and groom. This is not something you want to carry. There's so many lights, there's so many reflectors, there's sandbags, there's V-flats. It's just not always practical, but I want you guys to know that it's an option. Some people are shooting fashion in studio or products, more commercial work in the studio, and they need that solid light that they can count on for picture after picture. If you're looking to invest in something like this, I would definitely say Profoto is the Cadillac, the luxury. They're reliable, they're pretty awesome. I have used Profoto before. I really do like them. But if you are sort of just breaking into the strobes, I would start with the Alien Bees. They're about $400, and they're easy to travel with, which is good if you're on the go. Again, there are third-party options. The Godox AD600 is about $500, and that's a good start, that are compatible with Canon, Nikon, and Sony. All right, so I'm gonna jump into your off-camera lighting situations, which I find are, for me at least, my go-to as of late. Now, the off-camera light with a single light setup is just one camera, and it's sort of off to the side there. And you guys make sure you're all on mute so that we don't hear coming in. Okay. So one thing I wanted to point out here is that you will need to sort of set your light up on a 45-degree angle. Now, what I like about this setup is that it doesn't take away from the light in the room. And I'm going to show you some more examples of this. The ambient light is something, to me, that gives the mood in the room. So I definitely don't want to lose that. So this sort of brings out the subjects without losing that. I'm going to show you guys what we use in my setup for the off-camera light setup. So what you'll see here is some of the gear that I use. For that single light setup, all you need is one flash, and it's a flash with a transceiver, and then you also need the remote. So this is the remote, and I'm just showing you the Godox version, but Canon, Yongnuo, they all have different versions of it, and they're all pretty reliable. You can basically put that remote on top of your camera and then set the flash up on a pole. So by doing that, you're basically setting it up so that the remote will communicate with the flash and, you know, create those effects that you want with that single light setup. Now, this right here is called an S bracket with a Bowens mount. This S bracket is very inexpensive, and it's a good way to connect your flash to your light stand. And what I like about it is it has this little hole right here to push an umbrella through. And a lot of people are probably wondering, like, what are you talking about? So if you have questions, please just ask me. I'll break it down even further if you need to. So these items here on the bottom left are the MagMod system items that are pretty popular nowadays. You see the Mag Sphere or the Mag Bounce and the Mag Grip. I really do find that these are great additions, and I have them and I use them. The one thing I will say is that MagMod basically uses magnets to connect the items to the flash. So this elastic band here connects to the top of the flash, and this connects to the magnet. So we have a question here. Do you keep a flash on camera while using OCF? Good question. Sometimes I do, and I'm going to show you that example. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do, because obviously in certain situations you're not going to be able to have the help. So I have an assistant that basically holds the light stand and holds the flash in place. But what if I don't have that assistant? What ends up happening is that I'll need to have a flash on camera as well, because when you're in a situation where, you know, maybe you're at a park or you're in a reception venue, there's people everywhere, and light stands are pretty dangerous. So I like having someone holding on to that light stand. They can pick it up, move around the room really easily, and that's my preference. So sometimes I'll do one light off and then one light on camera. But a lot of times, especially during a first dance situation, like here, I didn't have a flash on my camera. I just had the remote and one flash pointing at my couple. Okay, another question. How do you determine when to use the Mag Sphere versus the Mag Bounce? Very good question. Okay, so what you want to know, the Mag Sphere, as you can imagine, it's a sphere, right? So it's going to shoot light all over. It shoots light in all directions. Whereas the Mag Bounce, because this side is opaque, it doesn't, the flash will go forward. The Mag Bounce is really good for when you're in need of a strong beam of light to go forward. It spreads the light out because, as you can see, here is open. So it spreads the light up and forward. This spreads the light all around, like in a big circle, sort of like an umbrella, but a little more concentrated light than the umbrella. Personally, the Mag Bounce works good for me when I'm unable to use an umbrella. If I can use an umbrella, I prefer using an umbrella. So I'll use an umbrella when it's just the bride and groom, or it's family photos, or something where the subject is stationary, not moving around. But the Mag Sphere, I tend to use when you know, things are on the go, people are on the dance floor, and I just need something, you know, quickly, like a quick scene, a quick burst of light that's diffuse. So great questions, guys. If you have any more, just, you know, shoot them to me. Okay, so another question, just to be clear, is in that reception photo, the only light going off was the one off camera, correct? Jessica, that's right. I had one light off camera on a light stand. My assistant was holding it, and it was shooting right at them. Now keep in mind, I had the mag grid on it, the mag grid. And actually, I do not have the grid pictured here, but I can show you guys what that looks like. The grid is another item in the mag, like the mag mod system. But basically, what you guys have to keep in mind here is that you only have two people, right? Two people. You don't need a lot of light. Like you can have more of a direct source of light. So another question, was the light pointing towards them or away at the 45? It was pointing towards them. Pointing towards them 45 degrees, and it just hit them just right. So the light was pointing towards them. All right. I'm going to give you guys some more examples. Thank you so much, Jessica. Okay, so for this next one here, this is off-camera light, one light setup, and as you can see, the light is coming in from behind. Now, I particularly like when the light's coming in from behind. Like I said, it's called backlighting. We talked about that with natural light, with the sun. So in the car, the sun is not going to hit them from behind, so I created my own light using one off-camera light right behind the couple. I had my assistant standing outside the car and pointing the light towards them with a mag sphere. All right. This is another one. This photo actually was really popular on Instagram lately. And I want you guys to keep in mind that sometimes your photos are just more interesting with different lighting setups, okay? So I encourage you to try it out and not be intimidated, and basically use your discretion. But this photo became really popular recently, and that's because obviously it's raining. And you know what? We planned this shoot, guys, and we were hoping for fall sunset, a fall sunset. That's what we were hoping for. But guess what? The Mother Nature had a different plan. It was raining, it was freezing cold, and there was no sunset, okay? So what did we do? We had to create our own light. So what I did here was I had one off-camera light behind the couple. Now, what you guys probably are noticing is that the light is pretty intense around their legs. Like, as you can see here, the outline of the light, and the light here, and the light here. All I did was, because it was raining, I didn't have an umbrella, the couple had an umbrella, I simply put the speed light on the ground, okay? It's on the ground down here. It's pointing up towards them. I did not have an assistant that day. And so, you know, typically I would try to put the light on a stand and I would try to be all fancy and all that, but I didn't have time for that. It was soaking wet. You see her dress is wet here. So I put it on the ground and I shot it up. It lit up the umbrella. It lit up the raindrops, and it turned out really pretty. So these are more single light setups, guys. I just want to show you the different ways you can use it. This photo on the left, this is an engagement shoot. It was sunny, it was hot. This was actually the first day of fall, but we still had a lot of sun, and it was beautiful. Now, I didn't really need off-camera light for this picture. I had lots of sun coming in, and everything pretty much looks very well lit. But this side of the bushes was dark. So I turned on an off-camera light, and I had it pointing towards them. And if you look here, I didn't Photoshop this, so I want you guys to see this. I had the light stand this time, okay? So you can see here the light stand shadow. But basically that light just helped to illuminate here. It also illuminate under her arms and just, you know, gave her face a little bit more light. And that's one off-camera light behind the couple. Now this one on the right-hand side is, this venue was very dark. The ceilings were black, like literally dark black ceilings, and candlelight. So the room was pretty dark and I needed more light. So my assistant is off to the side behind these guests and holding one speed light on a light stand with an umbrella. And that's what caused this side to be well lit. Here's another example where I have one flash to the side. Now, what you guys probably will notice is that there's light on this side. That's because there's a window on this side, but this side ended up being pretty dark. So I wanted to add more light to the couple. So I put a speed light on the side here and I had it pointing towards them, and it just gave a bit more light. Now this is another setup where the couple was already backlit very well from the sun. The sun's coming in, as you can see, from the shadows on the trees. This was around golden hour. The sun was nice and golden, and it's personally my favorite. But I didn't want to lose the detail in her dress. I also didn't want to lose their faces by having it, you know, shine so brightly. The sun, I didn't want it shining so brightly into my camera. So I'm basically using one off-camera flash to help light the couple. And I did not have a modifier on it because the sun was too harsh. And I needed that extra light. So there's no modifier on this flash. And that's just one flash. Now, in some situations, you need two lights. So I had a question before about having a light on camera. So that's, I'm going to be talking about that next. Two lights can really help when you have a large group and you need to sort of, you know, light a bigger scene. So these are speed lights again. I had one speed light behind the group, sort of like in the middle where the bride is, in this little area. You can see it's really bright here. And it sort of just lit the outside of everyone. It gave a nice little rim light for everyone. And then I had one light off to the side shining towards them. I didn't want to lose the sky, right? This is a destination wedding. The couple wants to remember the sunset that they had on their wedding day. It rained all day. So literally the rain stopped and I was like, oh, finally we can do some pictures outside. So this is what we came up with. So just to remind you guys, speed lights are easier for events and weddings when there's a lot happening because it's just easy to set up and it's just easy to use the radio transmitter to get that light on them. Now this is a situation where I had one light behind and off to the right side. And then the second light I had on camera. So what you'll see here on the bride's arm is the light from behind. You can see it on the side of his face as well. And then I had my light in front to help with lighting the cake and with lighting their faces really well. Now, again, you can see that flash on her hair and you can see it rimming his face here. And I just wanted to make sure I didn't lose any of the detail in this. And one thing I like about having that flash behind and off to the side is that you don't lose the room. The room doesn't look as dark. Sometimes a flash, when you only have one flash on camera, it causes like a black hole effect. And I don't like that. So I always try to, you know, add some dimension and help the subject stand out a bit more with the two light setup. It looks like I have a question. On the last shot, did you edit the stand out of the shot in post, or is it below the subjects? Are you talking about this one, Candace? So this one, I didn't have a light stand on the flash. I actually I actually just placed it on the floor. I don't know if you guys are shooting weddings a lot, but with weddings, it's like sometimes you have like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and they're like, okay, like we have to rush, rush, rush. And I didn't have an assistant. I literally just ran behind, put the flash on the ground, and took that shot, you know? So sometimes you just don't have, I think actually what you're seeing back here is that's a boat. That was like a boat was tied up over on this side. So all it is one speed light on the ground pointing towards them. And again, this is a flash one. So the flash that was on camera for this one is set up as a master, and then the one on this off to the side is set up as the slave flash. And that's something that, you know, with practice, you guys will learn how to take advantage of using your flashes so that you can easily set this up yourselves. There's another 2 flash setup for you guys. The 2 flash setup, it was 2 flashes, one on this side, one on this side. Now, this picture, in my opinion, it's not my favorite, and I'm gonna explain to you why. The windows is adding a lot of light behind them, and it's almost blowing them out a bit. So what I would say for me going forward is that I probably wouldn't want them to be this close to the window. But I still kept it in there. The clients were happy with it. I used 2 umbrellas and I used 2 flashes off camera. So both of the flashes were off camera on the right and the left side on a 45-degree angle towards them. Another example of the 2 flash setup is here. This is a family photo, and with big groups, guys, sometimes you need 2 flashes. Sometimes you can use 1, but you're going to need a larger umbrella to sort of make sure everyone gets light on them, because you don't want, you know, half of them to be well lit and the other half to be dark. So you always want to think about what type of setup is going to light your subjects in the best way. Okay, so this is just some examples that I want to take you guys through. Now, this venue, guys, is super dark. It's called Oheka Castle. It's in New York. Beautiful venue, super like posh, like very, very fancy, you know. But it's dark. It's a very dark place. So I had to give some light into that place, because otherwise it would just be kind of dark. So I used a flash. So, okay, I want you guys to guess. I want you guys to guess, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I did. So I did use flash in this photo, but I want you to guess how many lights do you think I used, and just tell me what you think. Do you think I used 2 or 1, or I want to hear what you guys think based on what we talked about. Crystal says 3 lights. Any other guesses? Any other guesses for this photo? We're coming up on an hour now, guys, so I'm gonna be finishing up. Natalie says 2, 1 on, and 1 to the left. 1 light to the left. Yes. Yes. Okay. You're right. 1 light to the left. That's correct. This picture is 1 light to the left. Okay. Now, what I want you guys to know is that you are going to probably have very little time. You know, time is always tight. even, and not just at weddings, I mean, just at any shoot, time is always of the essence. I didn't have time to set up 3 lights. I did not have time to even set up 2 lights. I had the trigger on my camera, and then I had my assistant holding 1 light with an umbrella. And you guys, I did not talk about soft boxes for a reason. I don't use soft boxes. Now, it's not that I don't like them. It just doesn't really suit the type of work that I do, okay? I like umbrellas because it spreads the light. It spreads the light like how a window would spread the light, okay? So I'm big on umbrellas. Soft boxes are great too, but they direct the light in a very narrow direction, so I don't carry them around. And they're not as easy to set up as an umbrella. So just, that's one thing I didn't really talk about, but good guess on that. Natasha, I feel like you haven't even scratched the surface yet. Can we keep going? Yes, I'm going to keep going. I do have quite a few more slides to go. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is part 1. Part 1 is sort of just, you know, getting you guys to understand how you can use the light. But the next class, I'm going to be talking more about my camera settings and my lighting settings on my flash. That would have made this class about 2 hours. So I'm going to save that for part 2. So if you're interested in signing up, you can do that. Okay, so almost done here, guys. Guessing again. Flash or no flash? And if it's flash, how many flashes? Guess. Jason says no flash. Victoria says no flash. Shiauna says no flash. Abby, no flash. Natasha, you are right. One light set up here with an umbrella. Right, you're right, Steve. 1 light to the left. Okay, now I'm not gonna you know, go into too much detail because I think you guys are getting the point. You can make a flash look natural, okay? And it doesn't have to look flashy, okay? This window was beautiful, but if I had faced the bridesmaids to the window, the backdrop wasn't as pretty. So I wanted to keep the windows as a backlight and then give a little pop of light. So I set up 1 light to the left and put an umbrella on it, and look at that. All right, so we got a few more examples and then we're gonna wrap up. So this is a branding session. Flash or no flash, 1 light, 2 lights, what do you guys think? Correct. Abby, you got it. 1 light set up to the right. Jason, you're right. Steve, you're right. Crystal, was that light continuous or flash in the last photo? It was a flash. This was a flash. Yep. Okay, good job. You guys are starting to see. It's 1 light and it's with an umbrella. And you know what, guys? I want you guys to think about this. Like, you're just trying to create a window. In my style of photography, I don't want things to look like a flash was used. Sometimes I do because it's night and you want, you know, that nighttime edgy look. But you don't always have to make it look too flashy. It can be soft, it can be diffused, and that's what the umbrella's for. Now, I have another one here. Flash or no flash? Victoria says no flash. Natalie says natural light. Steve says flash. Candace says open shade. Yeah, so this is natural light. This is natural light. This is natural light. One thing I like to do is I use the trees as shade. Okay, the trees are giving you some shade, but then there's a little bit of light coming through the trees. So I really set them up in that little area, and it really framed them really nicely. All right, now we got just a couple more. Flash, no flash. Flash or no flash? Oh, Abby has a question. How did you manage to keep the couple from having a green tint from the grass? You know what? So, good question. So this grass is shaded. Most of the grass is shaded. So, you're not really gonna get that green tint because of that. And also keep in mind, the white. They're wearing white, right? So you see the white on his jacket, the white dress, all of that really helps. But you're not going to get that reflection because of the shade on the grass. Okay. Steve says no flash. Monica, no flash. Jason, no flash. Okay, guys, I had a flash in this photo. Now, I think what you guys are starting to realize is that the flash doesn't have to be obvious, right? So the flash, I actually have my assistant, and this little area right here gives it away. You see this little patch of light right here? My assistant is bent down behind them right here with a flash on a light stand. The only reason why I did it is because there was a lot of tree coverage here. And it would have been beautiful, it would have been fine, but I wanted her veil to be lit a little bit, okay? So I had her crouch down behind them and light them from underneath. Under her chin is a little brighter. You can't really tell, but this little area right here gives it away, okay? There was a flash in this picture. Flash or no flash? We're going past an hour now, but I'm wrapping up soon, so Abby says flash. Jason flash. Shiona flash. Flash to the right. Monica flash. Candace one light. Okay, guys, no flash. No flash. Okay? This room had light in it. This room had, you know, the lights that there's one over here. It kind of points down and it lit them up. I didn't need a flash. If I had flashed them in addition to the light that was already in the room, it would have been too much. And you see I have a flashback here. I didn't use it. You see how it's not being used here? So, and then there's all this light here. So I just used what was in the room, okay? This is a light that was already in the room and pointing at them. It's about the quality of light. What's the quality of light in the room? You have to use it and see if it works for you. Flash, no flash. And if it's flash, how many? Abby says flash. Abby says one flash. Any other guesses? Chi-Chi, two flashes? Steve, two? Any more guesses, guys? Candace says two. Okay, so this is one flash, and this is off to the right. I didn't have a light stand. I put it on the floor. This was somewhat, like, I just wanted the details to be, I wanted their flowers to show. I wanted the details on their dresses to show, and I didn't want to lose that. If you look on their legs, you can see the reflection from the flash. So you guys got that one right. There was flash in that one. Flash or no flash? This is a family photo. Flash or no flash? Victoria says flash. Any other guesses? We're almost finished the class, guys, so don't worry. I know we're a bit over now, but Jason, no flash. Monica, no flash. Abby, no flash. Chi-Chi, no flash. Steve, Crystal. Okay, you're right. No flash. This is a backlit photo. Backlight. Remember we were talking about putting the sun behind? Backlight. And what was really cool is that in front of them there was a fountain, so there was like water in front, so it was a nice reflective effect, and so I did not use a flash for this photo. Great job. All right, so that's pretty much the end of part 1 of lighting techniques. You guys are very, very good. You almost got them all right. I just want to find out if you guys have any other questions, because you know sometimes this stuff is a bit intimidating, but I hope that the examples and the explanation sort of helped you to understand. I'm going to start my video so you guys can see me. Can you guys see me? If you can, let me know, because I can't see myself. Okay, you guys can see me. Cool. I want to show you guys something. So when you use off-camera flash, do you always have it pointing towards the dance floor? Yes. Good question, Chi-Chi. I usually have it pointing towards the dance floor because I don't want to, you know, I don't really want it to be lighting up everywhere else. I just want the flash to light up my couple. So I usually have it pointing towards them. And that usually works really well for that. Candace, still a little intimidated by off-camera flash, but this was a great start. I'd love to see more in the future. Awesome. You guys, honestly, it's intimidating at first, and that's pretty normal. I felt the same way. A lot of times the off-camera flash, you get used to it over time. But what I would say is practice. Like, you can't wait till the day of a shoot to decide that you want to, you know, start using off-camera flash. You're really gonna have to figure out how to, you know, use it before you get there, so that when you get to your shoot, you feel confident, you feel ready to go, and you don't feel like you're intimidated anymore. What size umbrella do you have? I have about, so when I shoot weddings, I have a small umbrella, and then I have a really large umbrella too, but that does not work when I'm, you know, at an event. When I'm at an event, there's no way I can have a huge umbrella because it just gets in the way. It becomes a bit, you know, it slows you down. You have a lot of trouble trying to like manage it. So I like small umbrellas. The small umbrellas are much easier. They fit in my bag, and they were inexpensive too. I usually have like 4 of them just in case something happens to one of them. Is the flash bouncing off the umbrella or directly on the subject? Good question, Crystal. So sometimes I point the light directly at the subject. Sometimes I point it away. It really depends on the situation. If I'm in a close proximity, then I'll point the light away and towards the umbrella, and then have the light bounce back at the client. But if I'm in a big space, I'll point the umbrella directly at my client and then have the flash going through the umbrella, if that makes sense. I want to show you guys real quick. I know we're going over time here. So this is the Mag Mod system. This is the Mag Sphere. This is the umbrella, oh sorry, not the umbrella, the magnet that it connects to. And it's very, very strong. These magnets really stay in place. The only thing that I don't like about this is it makes your light pretty heavy, pretty awkward in size, but it works well. It's not my favorite. The umbrella is still my favorite because it diffuses the light a bit more. And then really quickly, I just want to show you guys, this is the LED that I keep in my bag, and it really helps with lighting up a scene. So I think that's, oh, and I also wanted to show you guys the S bracket. The S bracket is helpful for putting your flash onto the light stand. You just put the light stand in here, and your flash goes in here, and you can put an umbrella through here, this little hole. All right, so that's pretty much it. I have other workshops coming up. Next month, I'm going to be doing a workshop on social media. Instagram is literally, I could talk about Instagram in a whole hour class, Instagram ads, Facebook ads. So I'm definitely going to be tackling that in the next class that's happening next month in January. And then at the end of the month of January, I'm going to be doing another class on skin tones, lighting for skin tones, and just understanding how to bring out the best in everyone's skin tones. I do work with a lot of interracial couples and just people who want to look great on camera. So I'm going to be going through my 10 tips to help with lighting different skin tones. So definitely visit the website, and you're definitely going to find something to help you out, because when I was starting out, I didn't have a lot of help, and I had a lot of questions, and I didn't get a lot of answers. So I'm doing these online trainings to help other photographers and just help you guys with your confidence. So thank you. Oh, Jessica, when is part 2? So part 2 is going to be at the beginning of February. I will send out that information. I was going to do it sooner, but with Christmas, holidays, and everything, I didn't want to sort of jam pack everything into this short time frame. I can't believe we're 12 days away from Christmas. So thanks for coming, guys. I'm not going to keep you much longer. We went way over the hour I had planned, but I just wanted to make sure I answered all your questions, because I know this can be like a bit intimidating, and even for advanced photographers, sometimes we need like a refresher or just to hear how someone else does things. So thank you for tuning in. Like I said, the next class is going to be on social media marketing, social media, getting more followers, more engagement, beating the algorithm, and just being like a photographer who shares their work confidently, daily, being consistent, all of that. Because guess what, guys? You can book clients on social media too, and I'm going to show you how. So thank you so much. Thank you. You guys are awesome. I will definitely send you guys an email for the replay of this class, so just look out for that. The email will be coming as soon as it's ready. You guys can replay it, and in case you missed something. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Bye.